Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Holland, and welcome to First Friday Lunch. As you can tell by my getup today, we have a steampunk theme going on. Why? Because I finished The Courtesan of Constantinople way back when, and it is finally going to be e-published on Tuesday, November 10th. Very, very excited about this. So I thought I would take this month and talk about the process of how I completed this book. Now, we'll start at the beginning. I finished The Courtesan of Constantinople in 2016. That was 4 years ago. So why is it just being published now? We're going to talk about that. So I finished it about, I believe, mid to end of 2016. And then I started pitching it in 2017 to agents. And then I pitched it to publishers in 2018. So in 2017, I pitched it to 68 agents and received 24 rejection letters. The rest of those pitches basically went into the abyss. I sent it off to an agent, but didn't hear a response. So I used Query Tracker to track which agents I had sent them to. And so anybody after 120 days, you get kind of this like crooked face or whatever that basically says, hey, they're not talking to you. So that's where these numbers are coming from. When I when I complete the next book in this series, which is Alchemist of Archangel, I will go through and tell you how long it took me to write the book, how much editing I did, but I didn't track it with this one because I hadn't started that process yet in my writing. So, but we'll talk about that next. So there's a few other things that happened which really delayed this. In November of 2017, I lost my corporate job that I had been at for 21 years. So that kind of slowed down the pace of my writing. It slowed down a lot of my ambition. I love writing. It's what I do full time now when I'm not helping my husband with his business in the summer. But I really found out that I got kind of depressed when I went ahead and had lost my job after so many years. It was harder than I thought it would be. I was actually pretty good until through the holidays and everything, because that kind of kept me busy. But once we hit 2018, I was kind of in a funk. So it took me a while to get back on my feet again. But once January hit, I started pitching to publishers, and I didn't do any of that in December. I don't normally pitch projects anyway in December because it's sort of a slow month for the publishing and like the traditional publishing industry. So if you're looking to get traditionally published, don't pitch in December, because generally speaking, agencies and publishers, so we're talking like New York kind of based companies, tend to not. The slush pile is basically going to sit there until January. So, and then in January, they sort of seem to have a rush of people going ahead and querying, either both on the agency side and on the publisher side. So in 2018, since 2018, I pitched to 35 publishers and I received 18 rejections. Once again, a bunch of those went right into the abyss. As a matter of fact, I just got notice this week that one of the publishers I pitched to folded, and they had been sitting on it and asked me to do a revise and resubmit, and I did, and they'd sat on it and they just folded. So, missed that one. So that's kind of how 2018 started playing out. And I say since 2018 because I've also participated in Twitter pitches. If you don't know what that is, go ahead and ask the question and I'll try and explain it. Otherwise, I'll maybe do a video on Twitter pitching and how that process works. It was really, really big in 2017, 2018, part of 2019, and now it's kind of lost its shine. And I don't know how many agencies and publishers actually find authors through Twitter pitches. I think it's still cold query might get you the best results. Also, during this time, so we're talking 2017, 2018, I'm doing pitches. The market for steampunk, and I'm like Gaslamp, which is a little more fantasy based rather than science fiction based. So it sort of falls between the two because I do have steampunk elements, but I also have fantasy elements, which is considered more Gaslamp. But it has really become a niche market. And when I started doing my research, when I started going into publishers, one of the things that I do in my research when I'm looking for a publisher is I will go out and I basically Googled steampunk romance on Amazon, on Nook, on Kobo, and kind of look to see what the best selling titles were for those. And I found as we've moved forward from 2017 to now, steampunk has kind of lost its steam, if you will, in the traditional publishing world. And it has really become a niche market for indie or self-published authors. So, and I will address why I didn't go that route in just a few minutes. So in 2018, I was still sort of looking for publishers that might take that. A number of publishers that I did pitch to have folded since this, because I looked at a lot of small press publishers. They are more likely to take a chance on when traditional publishing is not looking at something like steampunk as a niche market, because it kind of had its moment in the sun and then it burned out pretty quickly. But there are a ton of readers, myself included, who love to read steampunk. So I feel like the market's still there. It's just not big enough for the traditional publishers like New York to look at it and say, yes, we want that. Or for agencies even to look at it because they know it may not be an easy sell. The next thing that happened in 2018 is my publisher, Resplendence Publishing, closed their doors in November. So I had to find a new home for those works. I actually did try self-publishing one of the books, but it did abysmally. I had the same cover art because I was able to get that from the publisher, and the edits had all been done. All that stuff was done, but it just did not hit its mark. And part of that might be this was Sexing Up the Spy that I had put up as a kind of a test to test the waters and see how it did. And it didn't do well at all. And part of it, I think a little bit was the reach of an independent author to break through authors who maybe have more of a following than you do as an independent author. And the other thing I think is that the book had been out for a number of years. So people who wanted to buy it had probably already purchased it. And I did drop it down in price significantly, but it just didn't pick up any steam. So I reached out to book boutiques, who is a kind of a split off publisher from Liquid Silver Books. And I said, my publisher is closing at the end of the month. And I got my rights back and all that. It was pretty clean process overall. Surprising that it was closing, but actually overall it was pretty clean. And I asked them, would you be interested in these books? And they said, yes, we'd be interested in those books. So I went ahead and I sent them over and they repackaged them, and they've consistently done pretty good. I mean, it's not high sales, but like I said, they've been out for a while, and I'm sure people who wanted to read the book have already purchased the book. So I wasn't too disappointed, but I'm making a little bit of money coming in with those books being re-released. So that kind of wraps up 2018. In going into 2019, I was still participating in Twitter pitches. I still had letters out to agents and editors. And so I was still kind of grooving it, but was still trying to find my groove, not working a full-time job. And I had also started working on other projects. I'd started book 2 of this series. And so I was writing that while Steph was just sitting with agents and editors. And book boutiques had also said they would be interested in that if I wanted to pitch it with them. And I said, oh, well, I've got it out with some traditional publishing houses. I've got it out with some agents. So I wasn't really quite ready to commit to it. And plus the other thing is I had been participating in Twitter pitches and some other pitch fests that they have online. And the time to hear back on some of not the Twitter pitches, but the other ones was maybe like a month. So, I mean, I was literally going, okay, I'm going to pitch. And then I would get, they wanted a partial or a full, and that would be sitting with them for so long before I would get a rejection. So I just still had this manuscript out there that I couldn't turn over to book boutiques until basically I'd gotten in all the rejections, or so much time had passed where I knew they just weren't interested. So that was kind of where I've been sitting up until basically this year. So In the fall of 2019, the owner, I had been working on getting my rights back from Liquid Silver because I just wasn't seeing the sales that I wanted to. And so I was working on getting those back anyway. And in the fall of 2019, the owner of Liquid Silver Books passed away, and I had to fight the new owner to get my rights back. And it was not a fun process, let me tell you. And it was longer than it really should have been. Like when Resplendence closed its doors, I had my rights back basically the day they closed. Like they were like, we're closing at the end of November. I'd gotten a notice at the beginning of November. They basically included in their wording that I was getting all my rights back and it was clean. This was not clean. There was, it was just messy all the way around. And anybody who was published with Liquid Silver and still had books at the time the owner passed knows how messy it was. So it just was not clean. So make sure you guys have a will and address these things, especially if you're authors. It was just, all I can say is it was a mess. So that kind of covers the process of how I went about getting the, getting to where I am today. So basically what happened is I kind of finished up this year. I think I participated in Kiss Pitch, some summer pitches. Nothing came of it. I'd started pitching the second book even because I'd completed that. And I was like, well, maybe people won't want the first book, but they'll want the second book. So I'd started pitching that. And now the problem is I have a series, and series have become far less popular than they used to be. They used to be something that I think readers like them, but I don't think publishers do, particularly traditional publishing, because usually in traditional publishing, you're going to get an advance and they want to be able to earn that back and for you to sell through before they buy the next book. And if your book tanks, like it doesn't do well, like let's say they gave you $20,000 for your book and you never earn that out, they're going to be less, you might get less money on your next book, or they may not even want to take a chance on it, especially since steampunk has become so niche right now. I think readers who love steampunk really love it. I mean, I read almost all the new stuff that kind of comes out. I love it, but I don't think publishers like it at the moment. So, and then coming into 2020, I had been pitching the second book in the series, which has a pandemic. There's a disease in the book. And I'm like, I'm sure that was so popular to have this year. So I kind of knew that this was not going to find a home. So I finished out the rest of my contacts and kind of said, do you want this? Do you not want this? Watched as some publishers close. I had one publisher that had it kind of over basically the summer, and they'd asked for a revise and resubmit, and I gave it to them, and they're like, I will never pitch to this publisher again. But they were sort of like, you just made it worse. And I was like, all right, well, so that was my response. I was like, okay, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to go somewhere else. And so I approached Michelle at Book Boutiques and asked her, are you still interested in this? And she said emphatically yes. So, and they're fine with series. So I'll earn a higher royalty rate because it's original work versus something that they're just repackaging for me. Some other stuff that I had done is I had actually, with the publisher that had closed that I talked about that had been sitting on this, I had been, I was going to just go right here for a minute. I had been going, the publisher that had just closed, I had been waiting to hear back from them, but they had, when they sent me their revise and resubmit, it was pretty detailed. And so I had actually had this book has been critiqued by my critique partners at Word Weavers. It has been beta read by a couple of beta readers. It also was edited. I actually had an editor look it over after I'd gotten my first revise and resubmit letter from a publisher, and I wanted it help cleaning it up because I think it had some developmental issues that I maybe wasn't seeing, because let's face it, people have been looking at this thing since 2016. That's 4 years. And so every time I'd get a rejection letter back, I'd pull the manuscript out, I'd tweak it a little bit, I'd send it out again. And so I finally had an editor look at it. I think it was last year. I might have to go back and look. Misty Moyer looked at it for me, and she did a wonderful job helping me kind of clean up some stuff. And I had given her this revise and resubmit letter and said, this is what they're looking for, and can you kind of explain it to me, because I'm dumb in the world of editing. So, but she did. She looked it over, and it was much better than, ended up being a much better work than it would have been otherwise. So that's kind of everything about the process of the book. I had put out on Facebook, if that's where you were, then I'm actually going to put the book cover up here so you guys can see it while we're talking, because wouldn't that be cool? So we're going to do this and that and share it. I'll go back over here. So it's over on the side over here. So that's my book cover. You can't see it. It's like kind of tiny, and that's why I'm dressed steampunk, because it's a steampunk. I love the cover. When they finally sent it to me, Valerie Tibbs did the cover. She did a wonderful job. But I remember I was sitting there and I could see it said, Courtesan of Constantinople mock-up, which is usually what your publisher will send you when they've got a cover. One of the things I love about small presses is that you do get kind of some more buy-in on what your covers look like. Not always. I mean, sometimes they're like a traditional publishing house in the sense that they have a marketing team and they're just going to do it and they know what's best. So that's one of the things I like about working with a small press, is that they will kind of give you a little more input. So when I remember I got the email and I was kind of like clicking on it going, please don't suck, please don't suck. And it did not. It's gorgeous. Isn't it gorgeous? God, I love this cover. It is so pretty. So while I'm going through some of these questions that you guys have, and if you have any more, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will answer them as best I can. So the first one that I had, so these were people that had gotten invited to the event on Facebook. And I think the next time I have a release, I think I'm going to do another release party sort of like this one, because it's fun. Isn't it fun? And I get to dress up. So that's why it was fun. The first question was from A. Catherine Noon, and she asked, what made you decide not to independently publish your book? So what Noonie is asking basically is whether, why I didn't choose to self-publish the book. And I was on the fence about this for a very long time, because as I said, I had done my research and found that many of the steampunk romance, not necessarily in some of the steampunk, but many of the steampunk romance books, which is sort of the niche that my book would fit into, were independently published or self-published by the author. And when I looked at that, I thought, okay, there's enough here that people are buying them. So there's money to be made independently publishing their books. But the reason I didn't, and I could have, because I'd already had an editor, Misty. But the reason I didn't is because there's two things I don't want to do. I don't normally want to spend money on an editor. Book Boutiques kind of lets the author hire the editor, which I like, but they'll do like the copy edits for you. So I don't like to put money out that I don't have, and I didn't have the money. So, and I didn't want to pay for cover art. I don't know what I would have paid if I had paid for this cover art. And then the other thing that I don't know how to do and didn't really want to pay for is formatting. And so to give up some of my royalties to have somebody else handle that was totally worth it for me. And like I said, I'm comfortable working with small presses. When you work with a small press, there are similarities between being an independently published author and also working with a small press. Some of them include, you're probably going to end up doing your own marketing. Book Boutiques does do they do some social marketing, as do most small presses. And so I think when they do the marketing, it's just like the base of what they have. But most of it is still going to come out of the author's pocket if they decide to spend money, but they're still going to have to go out there and promote their work. That's true in traditional publishing as well. I mean, it might depend a little bit on the house, but there's only so many marketing dollars. And a lot of times authors or their agents will go ahead and negotiate to maybe have the author do more marketing in lieu of getting a larger royalty percentage or possibly a bigger advancement. And they will use a portion of that money in that way. There's a couple Alexa Dunn is published in young adult, and she has a video out there. I'll see if I can find it and I'll put it in the links below about how much money she spent as a traditional author on marketing. And she has an agent. She's with a traditional publishing house. She's in young adult, but I think it was like young adult romance. So there's some crossover there. But I think when you look at traditional publishers, so we're talking about basically getting into a traditionally published deal where you get an advance, you get a royalty rate, you end up in multiple platforms like audio, print, and then sometimes foreign. So all those kinds of things, when you decide to independently publish and you do that, you're doing all of that on your own. So I would have had to do the marketing. I would have had to format the book, come up with the cover art, pay the editor. And those are things, two things that you should always do if you're going to independently publish: pay an editor or get really, really, really good critique partners, and pay for good cover art. Those, unless you know how to do those two things yourselves, and not everybody does. I do not. When it comes to editing, I still need to have someone else look at my work. I actually had my critique partners go through this, and two of them, Maddie Barone and Mary Jean Adams, are both published. And Maddie's independently published now, and Mary Jean Adams is published with the Wild Rose Press. But both of them helped me go through this book. And the wonderful thing about both of those two is Mary Jean Adams writes historical, and Maddie Barone knows history. So it was really nice because this is steampunk. You do a little bit of changing of the history. And so the thing I changed in here about the history was that it takes place about 12 years after the Crimean War, and the British and their allies lost. And so that kind of sets up the next sequence of the book. I actually should put that out on my website if you guys are interested, or maybe I'll put it in my next newsletter. I'll figure out something to share that information about what I changed. So, but basically the reason that I decided not to independently publish is because I don't have a job, like a Monday through Friday gig. And so I needed to kind of save my pennies, and I decided to put them into marketing rather than spend them on editing and agency, or editing and cover art and formatting. So this next one is from Amanda as well, as she asks, do authors need representation? At what point would an author be smart to look for one? So if, this is a good segue. Actually, let me go to the next question, and then I will come back to this one. Don't tell me that I deleted it. Oh, shoot. I might have deleted it. I think it was Elizabeth Schubert, and I can't find her question now. Maybe you can only have so many things up on here. Oh, I don't see it. I bet I accidentally deleted it when I was reformatting some stuff. But one of her questions was, did I feel bad that this is just coming out in ebook? Well, my plans after the ebook are to do a print run, audio rights and foreign rights. And I actually I actually contacted an agency about handling those rights for me. They may or may not do the print rights, but there are a few agencies that will handle the audio and the foreign rights for you. And so I think that is when an agent, if you decide that you're going to independently publish a book, like you're going to go ahead and you're going to format the book and do the cover art and get an editor and do all of that yourself. If you don't know how to do foreign rights or translations or anything like that, that might be an area when you want to go ahead and look for an agent. Or if you are looking to do your audio rights. These days, I do have some audio books out with ACX, which is a division of Amazon. That's actually where I've done my print runs for my books, because they're really novellas, so they're small. But when I go to do the print run for the Courtesan of Constantinople, what I'm going to do is, if the agency doesn't want to give those rights out, because Book Boutiques only took the e-rights and the e-digital rights, which is basically worldwide English. So I could probably still do foreign digital rights. I'll have to look at my contract and see exactly how that's worded, but I could probably do digital rights, but I can for sure do the print rights. So I contacted an agency about handling print rights if anybody would be interested in those, and then also foreign and then audio. So those are things like if there's an area that you're thinking about, like if you wrote a sci-fi or like a horror, or a sci-fi or something like that, that could be like put into a game and you don't know how to negotiate those rights, that would maybe be a time to go ahead and contact an agency or see if they would be interested in handling that, because there are now kind of boutique agencies that are working with independently published authors to handle things like that, including film and TV. So if like the Courtesan of Constantinople were to be made into a TV series for Netflix, I wouldn't be able to negotiate that contract. So I would probably want an agent who could. So I think that's the sort of things that you need to look for when you go to hire an agent. So those are kind of all the questions that I had really about that. So if you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat and I should see them. And I don't see anybody over here that maybe have any questions. So I'll just give you guys a few minutes. I'm gonna look at my wonderful cover. Yay. So this one went way faster than I thought it would. way faster. I will actually, before I end the broadcast here really quick, I will come back and I'm going to just go over a couple dates that we've got coming up. So the Courtesan of Constantinople will be available at all online retailers on November 10th. And then November 22nd, we'll start my online book tour with Silver Daggers Book Tours. Silver Dragon's kind of cool. I like that one too. But Silver Daggers Book Tours. And this kind of goes back to where I wanted to spend my money. I kind of set aside $100 to go ahead and do some marketing with this book. Even though book boutiques will do some marketing, I really, really want to give this book a hard push because I've worked so hard on it and I've like edited it and layered it and like rewrote sections of it. I actually pitched it years ago at a conference and it was kind of, my response was kind of, eh. And so I literally changed the location from England to Constantinople. I mean, I was like, it went from London to Constantinople and then I kind of came up with the title. Actually, there's a book out there called The Courtesan of Constantinople, which is about Fedora, someone ever, she's a famous, like way old history. And so don't be confused. I did not write about her. This is totally steampunk romance. So it's a different ball of wax. But yeah, hold on just a second. That was my husband. We're moving a plane today. So I was like, I should be done by this time. And then, we can go. So actually that is also sort of my signal to go ahead and wrap it up. But November 22nd, that'll start my online book tour. So if you guys want to, you can head over there. I believe there's going to be some review copies if you want to read and review. But yeah, so looking forward to that. That's just where I decided to spend some money. And last but not least, December 4th is going to be, let me hide that one. December 4th is going to be our next First Friday lunch. I'm thinking it'll probably be writing through the holidays is what I'll talk about. If you guys like this, go ahead and put this in the comment below and I may do another release party when my next book comes out just so you guys can see it. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, I don't see any questions in the chat, and I actually see that we have no guests anymore, but thank you so much for joining me. Once again, November 10th, Courtesan of Constantinople goes live at all your online retailers, and I will be putting the book into print. I just don't know what time frame that's going to look like, and it may depend on the earning sales of this first book. So thanks so much for joining me. I will see you December 4th at 11:30 Central Standard Time. So pencil me in for lunch.